Good afternoon, everybody. How are we feeling?
Great.
All right, we're going to do some IoT. I hope the lunch coma doesn't set it until at least 3 o'clock, but that's we'll hope we get past that. Today's workshop is on building a connected IoT product with Particle. Getting into an introduction, your guides today, myself, Ethan, as one of the solutions architects at Particle. I guide customers through product development and taking advantage of the Particle offering with IoT. David Middlecamp is also joining me. He's the head of solutions architecture at Particle, and he will be frantically running around to assist all of you as you run into, inevitably, challenges. But we've made this as smooth as possible to get data out of Particle and into FileMaker. There's another gentleman in the room who has been super valuable in this workshop, is Louis de la Parra. And he gave a talk yesterday on diving into APIs and taking advantage of Node-RED and Particle and integrating that into FileMaker. I wanted to get a little bit of an introduction into what is Particle, so you have an idea of what is the platform that we're dealing with and what does this all mean. So Particle is a fully integrated IoT platform where we take care of connectivity from end to end. And by that, I mean physical devices that are actually in the field, and you've got one of them in your hands, the Particle Argon, and taking care of wrapping all of that data that you're collecting in the field, whether that's temperature data, configuring relays, and publishing that data into the cloud and getting it into your third-party application. The beauty of Particle is that we actually take care of the device platform, giving you a platform to jump off of and doing your prototyping and enterprise scaling. We also act as the cellular MVNO. These are Wi-Fi devices today, but we do act as the backbone for when you're deploying devices in the field. So that's no different than being an AT&T or a T-Mobile. The last component, which is critical in terms of building an application, is actually the device cloud. The power of the device cloud is we handle doing things like over-the-air firmware updates, product management, and device brokering. So getting events out from all of your devices, rolling firmware down to your 10,000 devices, and also taking care of your integrations between the Particle cloud and your third-party application. So I've been talking about these couple pillars of what Particle is and like what is this all-in-one IoT platform. I think one of the things that's valuable is to start off with a business case just to understand how businesses are applying IoT in the business world. One of our customers is the largest HVAC distributor in the United States, and they have problems where service technicians roll out to go service an HVAC system, and they find that they don't have the part, and they go back, and then they go out again, and each truck roll costs several $100s. So all of a sudden, having an IoT device that's installed on an air conditioner changes this paradigm of servicing your entire fleet. So whereas before I was spending a few $100s every time a technician went out, I can now cut that in half so that when my technicians go out, they know exactly what part to service. In addition, instead of when a technician goes out and takes a measurement on the system, that's a very low resolution of that entire platform, of that air conditioner. So being able to now take information that's coming off of the air conditioner, including temperature, pressure, and current from the motor, we're able to actually push that in real time constantly into their cloud platform so that not just servicing with technicians, but they can also do things in the future like machine learning and predictive analytics. So when you're building on top of Particle, the things that we offer in terms of what the stuff is we have these compute modules. This is our enterprise-grade module. And on top of that enterprise-grade module, we offer fantastic developer tools so that you can build your application. So today we'll be writing in C and C++. Don't worry. We'll help you do all the heavy lifting, and we make it really easy so that you can build your application firmware that runs on top of our device OS. The cool part about the particle ecosystem is that we take care of all the heavy lifting of connecting to the cloud, formatting data, and dealing with all the nitty-gritty nasty stuff that is needed in order to get things out of an embedded device and into the cloud. And again, I had mentioned Particle acts as an MVNO, and the connectivity layer inside the device OS takes care of moving data into the cloud. A few of the tools that we're going to interact with today is the Particle console and the Web IDE, so that you can actually see your data flowing in real time. And we'll be dealing with some of the integrations that Particle offers, where we have REST APIs in order to get data out of the Particle cloud and into your application. The other tool that we'll be dealing with is called the Particle Rules Engine. And this is a drag and drop business logic engine that enables you to take data flowing from one side and actually pipe it out to the other side. And that's actually the tool that we'll be using in order to get data into FileMaker. The last thing that I'll highlight on the platform is when you are building an IoT device to deploy at scale, you'll need to take care of all of these things. And the value is that Particle does most of this, if not all of this, for you. So we have the message brokers. We take care of the SIM cards. We've selected the microcontrollers. And we have the hardware as pre-certified. Now, if any of you have or have not built hardware before, when you're starting to talk to a customer and you realize, oh, I need to do hardware certifications and talk to the FCC, all of a sudden it becomes this heavy lifting that we've done for you, so that you can focus on solving your customer's problem and not having to focus on calling AT&T or dealing with the FCC. And built on top of all of these things, we've built the entire Particle platform with security in mind. Data is encrypted end-to-end, and we make sure that through each pipe in the platform, your data is secure. So you don't have prison doors that are controlled through MQTT and somebody on the internet can cycle them. That unfortunately had happened. Looking at this architecture kind of in more detail that we're going to poke at today, we're going to have our Particle device connected into some sensors. We're going to write a little piece of firmware. We're going to connect over Wi-Fi today into the Particle device cloud. And through the Particle integrations, move data into the Particle Rules Engine and then into FileMaker so that you can actually see the data and records getting updated with temperature and humidity data. So to kick things off, I'd like for all of you to navigate to this URL, and we'll get started. Feels darker over here today. That's okay. And for those of you joining us from yesterday, thank you for coming back. You'll be able to interact with David and Louie today in order to get yourselves kind of up and running from where you were left off yesterday. Thankfully, today we will not be downloading anything onto our machines and taking up valuable bandwidth. So I'm going to navigate into FileMaker-workshop.Heroku app, and I'm actually going to leave this URL up here for those who are still getting into the URL. No, I didn't want to save this. So getting started today, I'd love for all of you to go ahead and create a Particle account. And from the URL that I just listed, if you click Getting Started, underneath before you get started today, there's actually two URLs that are important to us today. The first is actually creating a Particle account. And the second is actually installing the Particle mobile app. So I have an account created today that I will go ahead and use. But if you can fill out make your own personal Particle account, and these devices will have will be claimed to that email. In addition, for those of you that have iOS devices, the application is available on the iTunes Store, App Store. For those of you that have Android devices, it's available on the Play Store. So we'll take, I would say, 10 minutes and kind of make sure everyone's moving along and has the applications downloaded. Put that in the corner. Hang out back here again. How's the Wi-Fi and cellular today? Are the mobile apps downloading okay? All right. Sounds like conference Wi-Fi. Yes, this will actually be the only thing that you need to download onto your device instead of a 200 megabyte IDE at a conference. There's nothing stopping you from kind of poking ahead if you want to take a peek at the rest of the tutorial. We'll be going a little bit off script today, where we're going to focus on Chapter 1 and Chapter 3 today. So the next thing, for those of you who've created your Particle account and downloaded the downloaded the mobile application, we're actually going to unbox our Particle Argon now. Where is our pretty picture of the Argon? So while we're getting started, you can unbox it from the box labeled Argon. There's going to be three things that you're going to need out of this. One is the Particle Argon device, and the second is going to be the Wi-Fi antenna. So there's a little Wi-Fi antenna that's in a separate package, and you can pull that out of the bag. And what you'll actually do is there's two what's called UFL connectors. These are special antenna connectors. And you'll take your Wi-Fi antenna and you'll connect it to the connector on the left that's labeled Wi-Fi. I would encourage you to be very gentle on the insertion, as these connectors are only rated to typically 10 cycles. But they're really good at moving data through antennas. Yes. Thank you so much. We did spend a lot of time on the packaging. Oh, yeah. We did think a lot about the packaging and what that unboxing experience is like.
What's fun about these bags too is they're like food grade bags, right?
Maybe. The packaging workshop is at another conference. So now that we have our Particle Argon pulled out of the package, and we have our UFL connector, our Wi-Fi antenna connected, we're actually going to go ahead and connect our particle argon to the USB connector. And what you'll see where do we have a picture of this? I want to see you blinking. No, we don't need that. So what you'll find when you plug in your particle device into the USB cable, it's going to start blinking a dark blue. Now this is what's called listening mode. This is a special mode in the device OS so that you can configure the device, claim the device, and update the Wi-Fi credentials. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring up the mobile application. And I am going to log into my particle account. So it's going to be, and this is just my account that I've made for this developer conference at particle.engineer, if I can spell that right. Dev. Can you all see my screen okay? Dev 224. And now we're going to log in. So once I've logged into the mobile application, if you're logging in for the very first time, it's going to ask you to set up a device. If not, you can tap the plus button in the top right corner of the screen, and that'll bring up this same UI. What you'll want to do next is actually tap argon boron xenon. And now we're going to actually scan the data matrix. Yes, data matrix and not a QR code. Technically, these are different. I don't know why. And I'm going to go ahead and hold up my particle argon while it's blinking blue and scan that data matrix. So now once it's scanned, it's walking me through, hey, did you connect this Wi-Fi antenna? And making sure that the device is blinking blue. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and tap next, and it will pair with your device over Bluetooth. What we're going to do today is actually not use our particle device in a mesh network. Again, today we're not going to do not use a device. Do not use in a mesh network. Don't worry, these devices are free and we're not charging you any money dollars. All right, so that last screen that I tapped through is actually setting me into connecting to a Wi-Fi network. So we have two options today. We can try to connect to the DevCon Wi-Fi and see what happens. Alternatively, we've set up another Wi-Fi access point that is set up at the front of the room called Particle. And the Wi-Fi name is Particle, and the password is Particle. I will attempt to connect to the DevCon Wi-Fi and see what happens.
I think there's one DevCon 2.0.
Okay, so I am going to try connecting into that. So next what will happen is once you've typed in the Wi-Fi credentials, it's actually going to hand them to the particle device, and it's going to start flashing green. Flashing green means that it's trying to connect to the Wi-Fi access point using the credentials that you've given the device. Once it starts connecting, it's, yes, go ahead. Do not use in a mesh network. Do not use.
And
it's okay.
it's okay if it blinks green for a while.
Yes, it's going to be okay if the device ends up blinking green for a while. That just means that it's trying to get onto the access point. The thing that we're going to want to have the device do is wait until it actually starts breathing cyan. So breathing cyan on the device is, its happy place where the device is connected to the cloud and it can exchange information. The last thing is the device will actually, the mobile application will create a name for you. You can name the device whatever you want, but we have a fancy little engine that names it quirky names. So I'll leave mine with Narwhal Monkey, and then I'm going to tap Next. Great. So this device is now set up, and it's connected to the cloud. The cool thing that we can actually go ahead and try is we can tap on that device. Oops. We can tap on this device from the list of devices in the application. And for those of you that are on this step and your device is connected, I can go ahead and tap on D7. I can tap digital write. Come on, digital write, you can do it. Yes. Yes, you'll need to use the same account. Yes, the account that you created. So, I tapped on D7. I tapped on digital write. And now it says that this pin is in a low state. And the cool thing is if I tap D7 again, it's actually going to issue a command down to the device, and it's going to turn on an LED that's right next to the USB connector. So this is really the first step in our IoT journey of actually having a device that's connected over Wi-Fi, over your cellular device, telling it to turn on and off an LED. So it's kind of fun to just sit there and turn the LED on and off. And again, sorry? So there's an LED that is right next to, I'll show you when I turn it on. If we go into the camera, you can see it's this LED that's right next to the USB connector. So that one's going to turn on and off. So back in the mobile application, you can see from your list of devices, you can tap into your device, and now it's pulled up the pin mappings for the device. The next thing you'll do is tap on D7, and you'll tap on digital write. The reason why this works is there's actually an LED connected into specifically the D7 pin. So it'll take a second just to first start talking to the device, and also the Wi-Fi in here is a little bit noisy. But once that happens, you should see that LED toggle again. When you tap on the device, it's just a photo of the device. How do I get back into? So we can take a second and hang out here. Take about 5 minutes, maybe 10 if people are still stuck. All right. I am seeing a lot of cyan, which is a great sign. I'll just run through this one more time just to show that we can toggle the LED. My device has decided to drop off the network. So again, from the Your Devices list, we're going to tap into the device, and we'll get listed with a picture of the device. For those of you that joined yesterday, your device will most likely have a different application firmware on the device, so it won't be able to do this feature. But what we can do again is tap on D7, tap on digital write, the bottom one with the red next to it, and it will go ahead and flash the LED. I'm still on the D7 thing. I'm just doing it one more time, and it seems to not want to behave with me, but I got it to turn off and turn on one more time. Okay, so if you're at this stage, you're in a great spot, and we're going to move on to actually writing some firmware. So we've logged in. We didn't need to do our device update. Devices are on the network. Okay, so the next thing that I'd like to introduce everybody to is the Particle Web IDE. So I'm going to navigate to build.particle.io. And when I navigate to build.particle.io, it is going to bring up the web compilation environment. And I'm going to be really patient on the conference Wi-Fi. Wait for it to load. The particle Wi-Fi was intended for the devices. That being said, if you are having problems on the DevCon Wi-Fi, you can try connecting to the particle Wi-Fi. Sorry? Yeah, it should just be, actually it is HD. You can use HTTPS, or you can just type in the URL. It will resolve to a secure connection. Yes.
We got a single device. We have two phones operating the same device.
Cool.
Does that work?
I don't know. I think so.
It is controlling. The only thing is it's not updating the status on the other device, but they are both controlling the same.
So what's happening is on your device, you have two phones logged in, and there's commands getting sent from those devices to toggle the LED, and it's hitting the same endpoint, but you could actually make them update on both devices, but
Yeah. Okay.
so it's whether you're sending a command from one phone or the other, it's hitting the device in the same way.
So if we want to get the current status, we come out and come back in again.
Yeah, and we'll once we get to the next stage where you can see data flowing out of your device, I think it'll make more sense in terms of you've got a flow of data and you can put it somewhere else. So I am going to log into my Particle account. Particle.engineer. Maybe if I put an @ it would think it's an email. Great. So for those of you that have tried logging in, we don't need to enable two-step authentication because hopefully everyone's been a good actor this week. Okay. So this is really cool. This is actually a IDE environment. So you're actually going to write C and C++ firmware in the cloud. We're going to compile it in the cloud, and we're going to flash that application firmware down to the device over the internet in real time. So it's kind of powerful that you're going to be writing a piece of C code and flashing it over the air. What happened on your device? Okay, yeah, if you could box that one up and hand it over to me, then I can make sure that it doesn't get stuck. So to give a little introduction into the Web IDE, on the left we have the lightning bolt, which allows us to do compilation and flashing. We have our lovely save folder. And the most valuable things in the Web IDE is the code tray. So when I click on the code tray, it's actually going to slide out and show me some example applications along with all of the firmware applications that are on my Web IDE instance. So this allows you to work on firmware and actually save it in the cloud and to be anywhere in the world, write some firmware, and flash it down to a device. The next thing underneath the code sleeve is actually the libraries. So this is really, really powerful when you're building an IoT application because, like we saw today with the introduction of Claris Connect, having those JavaScript libraries that are there for you to just pull on and integrate into your application saves you a lot of headache and really leverages being able to build an application. In this case, we have a community library where you can search amongst the hundreds of thousands of libraries that we have available, and you'll be able to integrate them into your application. So for example, using things like GPS trackers or using things like temperature sensors, such as this DS18B20. If you are building an IoT application, most likely you'll be able to find a library that's supported on the device in the community libraries. The last button that we'll click on, other than saying, hey, you know, we've got links to our documentation and actually links to our help, we're going to click on devices. And this is actually going to list all of the particle devices that we have attached to our account. One of the things that we'll do today is if you could click on the devices tab, this one with the crosshairs in it, and slide that tray out, you should see your device online with this little cyan bubble. If you can go ahead and click on that arrow, you should actually see the device listing its device ID and its device OS version. And the cool thing that I'm going to show you is when you tap on the signal button, if I can get this device to lay down nicely, you should be able to, when you click on signal, see the device start shouting rainbows, is what we call it. And I think my device will eventually do it, but maybe yours have beaten me to shouting rainbows. So other people are shouting rainbows? All right. I just seem to be the one that's behind in the workshop. So now that we have actually gone ahead and shouted rainbows, we're actually going to write our first piece of firmware. For the first time, we're actually going to write C code in the cloud. So you should have a screen that looks like this, where it says title, and I can give it a title called Blinky 1. Then I'm going to hit the Enter key, and that's actually going to save the name of that application. I'm going to slide this code tray away, and now I'm left with my development environment. There's two parts to every particle application firmware. The first part is the setup function. The setup function is going to run once when the device comes up and online. And the second is going to be the loop function. And the loop function is going to run every time it goes through, executes your code, then it will take care of doing all the connectivity, then it will come back into your loop. So today, we're going to go ahead and write some firmware that actually makes the device turn on and off this LED. So if you want to follow along with exactly what I'm doing, in the FileMaker-workshop URL, if you click on Chapter 1, Getting Started and getting your particle argon online, then clicking Program Your Device, it'll have a link to the particle Web IDE, in addition to all the screenshots and walking you through what we're going to do today. The other thing is at the very bottom of the screen is a link to the final firmware that we'll write for Blinky, which is what we call this little application. So I'm actually going to go back up here, and I'm going to follow along with this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is initialize my the LED. And this is that same D7 pin that we were toggling before, but now we're going to actually write some firmware to toggle that LED on and off. Yes, yeah, that is the trickiest thing I've seen, is that is actually an equal sign. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so that I can actually have room to type. But I've got int LED pin space equals D7, and this is going to be declared above the setup function as a global variable. Inside my setup function, I'm going to actually define what this pin mode is actually going to do. And what this means is that this output, this D7 pin, is going to be recognized by the microcontroller as a digital output, so we can send out signals to the device. The next thing I'm going to do is hop into my loop function. And inside my loop function, I'm going to actually go ahead and do that same digital write that we did when we tapped on the D7 pin in the mobile application. So typing out digital write, LED pin, hi. Yes, I know I screwed it up. It's okay. We'll go from here. Then we're going to hit the new line, and we're going to actually add a delay into this. And this delay is going to be for 1 second. So right now, all that we have in our firmware is the LED is going to turn on, and then the device will wait for a second before finishing the loop and trying to turn the LED on again. The next line that I'm going to write is actually this one, where we're going to turn the LED off by doing a digital write again, calling out that LED pin, and then telling it that it needs to go into a low state again. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and add a 1 second delay into our firmware. Oh, that's just a mistype I put there on purpose so that you can see when you go ahead and you hit the verify button, because inevitably we all write our firmware and our code perfectly. You'll actually see the compiler call out, hey, you've got an issue. You should go ahead and fix this. So once I go ahead and delete that K in that space and hit the verify.
Is this space sensitive?
So this is not space sensitive. Is FileMaker script space sensitive? Okay. I think my antenna fell out. Oh, verify is on the left side of the screen. It's that big checkbox. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually go ahead and click the flash button, and I should actually see my device get updated with firmware. Right now, my device has fallen off of the Wi-Fi. Go figure. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm going to give myself a second to see if my device will come back online. But for those of you who are at this step, once you've hit the flash button, you should see that LED flash on and off once per second. Sorry? Oh, the save button. Yeah, so we'll take 5 minutes and see if we can get everybody onto the same page. And if you are ahead and you've got the LED blinking on and off, that's awesome. How are we doing on time, too? Okay. So, the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is actually take out our Grove kit and connect up a few sensors into the device. So when we go back to the tutorial, we are going to go to Chapter 2. And in Chapter 2, we're going to look at unboxing the Grove kit. So what you'll find in your Grove kit is actually your Grove shield, which your particle argon will be inserted into. So you can take that device out of your green box. And then there are three devices that we're going to connect into this shield. The first one is going to be our temperature and humidity sensor. So this is the one with the little blue square on it. That looks kind of funny. The next one is going to be a light sensor, which is the one that has this little LED bulb and a little microcontroller circuit next to it. The last one we're going to grab is the chainable LED. So this is just an LED that we can change to different colors. So once you have all three of those out, we're also going to take out 3 cables. So we're going to pull out 3 of these Grove cables. So what we're going to do first is actually, before we connect anything, we're going to go ahead and insert the particle argon device into the Grove shield. So there's only one way that this goes in. Just be careful that you line up the pins so that they match with your particle argon device. Otherwise, they might be one off and they could potentially short. I would also recommend, before plugging in your argon into your shield, is disconnecting it from the USB cable. So it'll be powered off. Yeah, those aren't as fun. It's more like a bag of peanuts where you kind of like rip from the side. They're not as tasty, though. Okay, so now that we've got our particle argon inserted into our Grove shield, the next thing we're going to do is actually attach the temperature sensor. So you can go ahead and take this blue temperature sensor and connect that Grove cable to it. Now we've got our first sensor that we're going to plug into our device. And that's actually going to be inserted into the bottom right, one up from the bottom right. So if you're looking at the particle argon, from the front, there's going to be a connector on the bottom and then one connector up from that. You'll see listed on the board is actually 2 letters and numbers, and that's D2 and D3. So you'll want to plug this cable into the D2, D3 connector. Awesome. We've got our temperature sensor connected. The next sensor that we're going to attach is the light sensor. Same thing as the humidity sensor. We're going to plug the Grove cable into this board. And then we're going to go ahead and plug in to the A0, A1 connector. So that's going to be the one that's at the top of your board. So it's on the same side as your temperature and humidity sensor. Absolutely. I wonder if we have. This is the best picture that I have, and I can zoom in for you. So one is that blue temperature sensor. There's only one of them in there. So we've got the light sensor, the temperature sensor, and then the last one that we haven't done yet is just the chainable LED. So we're gonna do the LED next. So in chapter 2, working with particle functions. So the last one we're going to connect is actually the LED. So this is the bigger board with a little LED bulb on it. And again, we're going to take our Grove cable. And if you look at the circuit board, you can actually see that there is the words in and out on the device. We're actually going to want to plug into the inside with our Grove cable. Once we've plugged into the inside of the Grove cable, we want to plug into the A7, sorry, not A7. We want to plug into the A4 and 5 port. So that's going to be on the opposite side, one down from the top left. Great. I'm sorry? Yes, there's 2 pins on that port, A4 and A5. But the great thing is the Grove cable connects them for you.
And can you review the pin connectors for the temperature and the light?
Yes, so your light sensor should be attached to A1, A0. And the temperature and humidity sensor is going to be connected to D2 and D3. All right, the great thing is I hear less bags rustling, so that means people must have everything plugged in. So this is going to be really cool. So the next thing that you can do is actually go ahead and plug in your device back into the USB port. And we're going to get some firmware up and running and actually see our temperature and humidity data flowing into the cloud. So what you want to do next is actually go ahead and click on Chapter 3. And in Chapter 3, there is a green tip bubble that says got stuck in the code. Click here for the completed working source. So once we click on click here for the completed source, we're actually going to get a copy of the firmware that we're going to run on the device. So once we've clicked on that link, we'll get this shared application, which includes all of the firmware, and it includes the libraries. So make sure that you are actually copying this application and not selecting all of the text and pasting it into a new app. So once I click copy this application, it says shared app copied. Now it's going to reload the page. I don't know why. So I'm going to give that a second. Sure. So if you go back to the FileMaker Workshop URL, this URL, and on the left side is Chapter 3. Oops. Then when you click on Chapter 3, you'll be greeted with the list of project goals. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see this got stuck in code pane. And there's a URL here that says click for completed working source. So we're all going to click on the completed working source. And that's going to bring us to a copy of the firmware that we're going to actually run on the device. So once you've opened that up, you're going to want to click copy this application, and it's going to copy it into your Particle Web IDE environment. Once that's copied into your environment, you're going to click back on the code button. And for me, I can click into the Argonne Workshop LAB03. And for you, it may appropriately load. Oh, sorry. So you'll want to scroll down to My Applications. This is actually showing all of the files and libraries that are attached to this project. So if I scroll down, I can actually see all of the projects that are attached into my Web IDE. So I'm going to click on Argonne Workshop LAB-3. I mean, they all have the same firmware in there. And what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and flash that firmware down to that device. And my device is very unhappy. Yes, so when you click on Flash, that's actually going to take all of this firmware that we have here, and it's going to compile it and download it over the Blinky firmware that you've written. So it's still there. Blinky's still there. He's still there for me, too. See, he's still right here. We got I am a big fan of Blinky. Blinky is it's the equivalent of the Hello World in the hardware world. So what happens when the device is flashing green? That means the device is trying to talk to the Wi-Fi network. And it actually brings up an interesting point that I like to highlight, is that when you're building an IoT application, it's important to consider in your deployment how your customer is going to get online. And as we can see even from today, everybody will still run into some Wi-Fi issues. So now consider I have 10,000 hot tubs in the field, and those 10,000 hot tubs are connected over Wi-Fi. The hope is that all of them get on the network, but even today, just going through a workshop, sometimes we have issues getting onto Wi-Fi. So if I'm a business owner, I want to guarantee that all of my devices are online and that they're getting data into the cloud. This is why we have a cellular offering, so that you can build your IoT application and not have to worry about where in the world you're deploying the device. so that you as a business owner can guarantee, hey, I've got data flowing into my web application.
That's the MVNO.
So that's the MVNO part.
And is the MVNO a private device that a business owns themselves, or is that connecting through, say, Verizon to your system?
So it's a module that's almost exactly the same as the one you're holding. And what we have is we have all the connectivity in place. So what that means is we connect in the US over AT&T's network. And we have all the partnerships. So when you're developing an IoT device, all that you need to be concerned with is the particle hardware and solving your application. So you don't need to talk to AT&T or.
Right. Because I was just wondering about all that gear you have over there. You're running your own MVNO here.
Oh, with this thing?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I was looking at all that gear.
Oh, so the reason why we're not using the cellular devices today is because it's kind of a pain in the ass to ask everybody to put in a credit card in order to start the billing. We do offer a certain number of months of free data because we want to encourage developers to build applications rather than be gated by, how much does it really need to be? And
But so this one is just running off plain vanilla Wi-Fi.
that's correct.
So we take this home, we can play Blinky all we want
Yep.
on our own.
Yep.
How do you specify the SSID password?
So what you'll do is actually put the device back into listening mode and go ahead and go back through that process on the app and enter your own Wi-Fi credentials. The cool thing is actually if you end up getting a particle boron cellular device, this same firmware that you've written for this device will work instead of over Wi-Fi, it'll work over cellular. And that's really powerful to say, wow, we're gonna actually see that right now if you give me 1 second. Correct. The pricing is online. All right, so I am going to try moving to a different Wi-Fi network because mine seems to be misbehaving. Don't use a mesh network. Connect to Wi-Fi. I'm going to connect to the particle access point. So for those of you that were successful in getting your device online and flashed with that firmware, we are going to navigate to console.particle.io. Right? It's kind of fun. I'm supposed to do what? Just don't blow it up. Okay. So I am going to flash my firmware that it was so painstakingly struggling to do. So now my device is going to flash down to my device. Uh-oh. So you've got, if you go to the particle console, so that's going to be console.particle.io. A brief introduction into the console is this is where you're going to see all of your particle devices that are attached to your account. So you'll be able to do product management, flash over-the-air firmware updates to your fleet of devices, and also manage SIM cards and deal with any third-party integrations. So if I go ahead and I click into my device, I am going to see things like the unique device ID, the name of the device, and the operating system version that it's running. Since I flashed the firmware that's on the device, And inside the firmware, it's collecting the temperature and humidity data, and it's actually publishing it to the cloud. So I can see in real time right now that it is 68 degrees in here. So it's a little, oh, is it chilly or is it warm over there? Good Lord. So in addition to getting data published into the cloud, there's a few other things that are introduced in this piece of firmware. One is actually a particle function, and the other is a particle variable. The cool thing about particle functions and particle variables is they are pieces of firmware and commands that are available in the cloud, so that in your application firmware, you can write a function and access it from the cloud. So if we go ahead and scroll down to toggle LED and click the call button, you'll actually see the LED turn on and then turn off. So this is really powerful because you're writing embedded firmware and you have access to it in the cloud.
Does that accept arguments right now?
This does not accept arguments, but you can send strings down to the device. A lot of our customers actually use functions for doing debugging. It's very powerful when you have a device. You can issue it a command and kick it off running a set of diagnostic tests that start collecting data back into the cloud. The other thing that we can do is, since this data is getting published once every 5 seconds, we can actually click on read sensors and it'll read it more frequently. 5 seconds is pretty quick though. Awesome. So we've got data flowing into the particle cloud. We've got a brief introduction to functions and variables. Now we're going to take it up a notch, and we're going to get introduced to the particle rules engine, which is built on top of Node-RED.
So you hard-coded into that firmware the address of your cloud server for pushing the data?
So all of the particle devices know about the particle cloud. They've been provisioned to access our cloud. There's no specific static IP addresses. The devices know how to hit our API endpoint and talk into our device broker securely. So here's where things get wild and crazy. So we're going to get introduced into the particle rules engine. So for all of you, you should have a unique piece of paper that calls out a web URL that should say particle rule or rules engine URL. In my case, for my my instance, I have mine. Please don't navigate to mine because it's we all have our own instance for this workshop, and it will run your application. Actually, you can try to navigate to mine, but it's everyone has their own unique username and password. Oh, that's right.
Because it's a separate vertical account. So if you open a private browsing window or a window.
Where do we have our? So we want to get to the point where we are. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, we need a private browsing to...
Yes. Thanks, David. So because of the way that we've set up your particle rules engine instances, they're linked to a specific account that we've created for you today. So on that piece of paper is going to be a username, which will start out as FileMaker-dev, accompanied by a number at particle.engineer. So for example, mine is FileMaker-dev 224 at particle.engineer for my user account. And my web address is actually filemaker224.rules.particle.io. So this is going to be your username. Not your username. You've got it on your piece of paper. And I'm going to open an incognito window and or private browsing window. And I'm going to navigate to FileMaker 224.rules.particle.io. And you've got your own URL. So if it's 12 or 20 or 80, you'll want to type in that URL. Then you'll get presented with login with Particle. So the next thing that we'll want to do is try logging into the instance. Sorry? So so what you'll want to do is, yes, that's correct. And that it's only just for this workshop because we've given each one of you a Particle Rules Engine instance that's tied to a special username. So in my case, I will go ahead and log in. And after I log in, we can take 5 minutes and make sure that everyone is logged into their Particle Rules Engine account. I'm going to skip doing two-factor authentication, and then I will be introduced back into the Particle Rules Engine. You should see some colorful items on the left, a blank sheet in the middle, and then some text on the right.
So when we're entering the username, we're getting an error that it needs to be an email address, but there's
Yes.
no TLD at the end of it.
So we'll take. Okay. So it looks like a lot of people have been logged into their Particle Rules Engine instance. Okay. There's no shame. This is a safe space. So I am going to navigate down to connecting. So the next part of the tutorial is going to be guided by me with some of the content from the connecting rules engine flows to FileMaker server. So the next thing that we need to do is make sure that the FileMaker nodes written by fantastic Louis de la Parra, if you could wave your hand one more time for us. We're going to go ahead and install those nodes into our FileMaker, into our Rules Engine instance. So we're going to go ahead and click on the hamburger menu in the top right corner. Then we're going to click on Settings. Then from Settings, we're going to have this drop-out slide. We're going to click on Palette. Then from Palette, we're going to actually select the Install tab. Once we've selected the Install tab, we're left with a search bar that says Search Modules. We're going to type in FileMaker, and we should have a search show up that says Node-RED contrib-FileMaker. After you see that, there should be a white install button, and if you could click that for me, then we'll hang out for a few minutes. Is most people's gray? Oh, wow, okay. The long story on this is these are deployed in a containerized infrastructure, and we had an engineer stay up till like 3 in the morning making sure that all of the instances had the nodes installed. Yesterday, they didn't persist in the container, but I'm happy to hear that they are installed today. This makes it a lot easier. All right. So the next step, now that we have the FileMaker nodes installed, or that they've already been installed, is we're going to go ahead and import a flow. So if you are in the Chapter 3, Connecting Rules Engine Flows to FileMaker Server, you'll see the Setting Up FileMaker If you scroll down to step number 3, we're going to go ahead and click on the hamburger menu, hover over import, and then select clipboard. Once I've done that, I'm left with a import nodes window. We're going to navigate back to, yes. It's okay. You beat me to it. No, you're fine. There's no. This is a safe space. So the next thing that we're going to do is scroll down just a little bit farther, past step 6. You're going to actually see this link to IoT event subscription. If you click on that, it's actually going to load up a text file. And in that text file, you're going to do Apple key A, Control A, whatever fancy select all command that you want to do. Then you're going to copy that into your clipboard. Go back into the rules engine instance where we have our import nodes. Under paste nodes here, we're going to go ahead and Control V and paste that into there. And we're going to import to a new flow. David may be able to help. But if you go one more time in order to get the flow, it's back in Chapter 3, connecting rules engine flows to FileMaker server. Scrolling down to step number 6, there should be a link to IoT event sub. Then when I go ahead and click on that, I'm greeted with a text file. All that I need to do is select that text file, copy it into my clipboard, and then come back into the rules engine and paste it into that clipboard. Don't forget to also select import to a new flow. What the heck happened to my phone? Hey, David. I think I may need you to restart my rules engine instance. Once you have this installed, you'll want to click the deploy button. Once you've imported the IoT event subscription, you'll want to click on the deploy button and confirm the deployment. So we will take a moment to go around the room because my rules engine instance is a little unhappy. Yeah, so I'd like to highlight to those who are running into the error when you click deploy, we're actually going to click confirm because we're actually going to do all those credentials now. Okay. So I'm going to see if I can get my rules engine instance working again. Perfect. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do for those who have their node flows imported correctly, we're going to go ahead and first configure the particle credentials in order to get the data coming out of our device and going into Node-RED. So what you want to do is actually, on your event subscription flow, go ahead and double-click on the subscribe to environment/latest. You're going to see an authentication tab, an authentication field, and it's going to say add new particle config. what you'll want to do is click that pencil. And now we're left with, okay, I need an OAuth client. So what we're going to do is navigate. We're going to leave this window up for now. We're going to navigate back to the particle console.
So this is going to be in the account you claim the device with. So not the rules engine account in the private window, but
Yes.
other browsers.
So if you can navigate back to your personal particle account and not the special particle FileMaker account that we've created for you, back in your non-incognito window.
Give your service access to the data that's in our account.
What this will do is this is going to set up your device to point data to be authenticated to flow within your rules engine. So I basically just re-answered your question with the same thing.
Pairing our device with your rules engine.
Correct. And yes. And that's the beauty of the OAuth client is we're going to get a client ID and a special secret, and that's going to allow all the data. It's going to allow the particle cloud. Sorry, that's the other way around. It's going to allow the rules engine access into the data that's coming out of the particle cloud. So on the left side of the screen in the particle console, I'll make this a little bit bigger. There's going to be this fingerprint called authentication. So once we click into the authentication tab, we're going to be left with this empty list of clients. We're going to go ahead and click on New Client, and we're going to click on two-legged auth. And I'm going to name this whatever I want to call it, my FileMaker rules engine. Yes, that's what we'll do. FileMaker rules. So now I've got my FileMaker rules, client ID, and client secret. And what I'll want to do is actually open a text editor and store this data, only because this client secret will only ever be displayed once. So I've gone ahead and clicked this clipboard button. You can also select it with your cursor and put it into your clipboard. Then I've pasted it into a text editor. Once you've confirmed that you've copied your secret someplace safe for now, we're going to click on I've copied my secret. And now we've got a client that's ready to be connected. So we're going to go back to our rules engine instance, and we're going to go ahead and paste in the client ID and the client secret. So I've got my client ID, I've got my client secret, Control-C, Control-V magic. Sure. Did you?
On devices, I see my device, it's got a client ID, but that's not the ID we're using.
Oh, so you're going to want to click on the fingerprint. So before, if you click on devices, okay, Wi-Fi. So when you click on the top box, that is the devices. Actually, I think I have a view over here. So if you click on this top box, it says My Devices. It's going to bring you, is this the view that you have right now? Okay.
It shows my device.
Okay. It just shows your device. So what you want to do is on the left side, there's the little fingerprint.
Yep.
And click on the fingerprint.
Yep.
Then once you're in there, that will bring up the authentication tab so you can create that client. Oh, Wi-Fi, you make me sad.
So then I create a new client.
Then you'll create a new two-legged client.
So
New client,
leg auth server.
correct. Name it whatever you'd like.
Get client ID and secret.
Yep. Then make sure that you copy and paste that client secret and that client ID into a text editor, because that's the only time that secret will ever be displayed. Okay. Once I've pasted in my client ID into the rules engine and my client secret, I can click update. Now that authentication for my rules engine instances is saved in there. The last thing that I'm going to do is actually call out the device that I want to receive messages from in this subscription node. So we've already called out the name of the event, which is environment/latest. And at the bottom, there's one last field called device. We are going to navigate back into the particle console. And we are going to get the unique device ID that this device has assigned. And if my Wi-Fi decides to work,
All right, can you go back half step?
we'll go back a half a step.
Where we plugged in the ID and the password.
So you've plugged in the client ID and the client secret, and then you just click update. Now it's saved. As long as you're at this edit subscription node with node properties, you're in the right place, because the next thing we're going to do is copy in the device name, or sorry, the particle device ID. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is, in order to get this unique device ID, I need to go back to the particle console. And I am going to switch Wi-Fi networks and hope that it's better on the DAN. Sorry, don't worry about Dan. Dan is our friend up here with the number of antennas. He blinks all day, and he doesn't say much, but he's a workhorse. Okay. I have no idea. Like, the Wi-Fi stopped working. Oh, here we go. Great. So I have my unique device ID, and I got that again from going to console.particle.io. I'll be greeted again with my devices that are listed. We're actually going to copy this ID, but in order to do that, we need to click into the device, select this device ID at the top, do a Control-C, copy it into our clipboard, and then we're going to paste that unique ID into the that last device field. Then I'm going to hit Done, and I'm going to click Deploy. There's going to be another error that the DAPI create record is not deployed correctly, and we're going to take care of that right after this step. Successfully deployed. Woo woo! All right. Here's where things get crazy. We're going to add our FileMaker credentials. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is scroll over to the right of the screen, and you're going to see this Create Record. Double-click into Create Record, and we're going to configure our DAPI client. So where it says Add New DAPI Client, to the right of it, there's another pencil. We're going to click into that pencil. And this is where, if we can get as much patience from everybody, David, myself, and Louie will go around the room and check to make sure that you've entered your credentials in correctly. The reason is because if we enter the wrong credentials, we'll need to reset your instance. This is a minor bug, and when you're going into production, this is something that you won't run into. So what I'm going to do is actually take the unique ID from the slip of paper, sorry. From Unique New York. So there's going to be a server, and there's going to be a database. The FileMaker server that we're using today, if we navigate back to the tutorial for today, we go back into Chapter 3, back into connecting rules engine flows to FileMaker server. If you scroll down to step number 9, there's a URL. The URL that you're going to want to copy is the https://devcon2019.fmi.filemaker-cloud.com. Copy that credential, or copy that URL, and paste it into the server. And the next thing is going to be the FileMaker database name. That FileMaker database name is going to be prefixed with FileMaker-of-things-workshop- and the number that's going to be on the piece of paper that's been given to you. So in my case, I have database 101. Yours will be different. We're going to bump up the concurrency to 3 connections. And this is the most critical part, is the account name. The account is going to be node-client, and the password is going to be particle-forever. And I don't trust my fingers, so I'm going to copy particle-forever. Yes, it very much does. But before we click add, David, Louie, and myself will walk around the room and verify that everybody who's on this step has entered in the credentials correctly. So we'll come around and verify for everybody. But the password for your FileMaker credential is going to be particle-forever. So I'm going to leave this up here so that y'all can see it okay. Oops, what have I done? Oh, I made that too big. Sorry. Down here. Credentials right here. Sorry about the noise. It's going to be this screen, and I'm going to leave this up. Okay. So we're going to take 5 minutes and head around the room and make sure that everybody has entered in the credentials correctly. Have we missed anyone that needs to be checked off yet? Maybe? Yes? The gentleman over there also needs a little bit of help. I can do that one. Beep. Okay. All right, for those of you who have figured out the next step, we're actually should see data starting to update in our FileMaker application. But we're actually going to walk through that right now. So I'm going to hit add and done, and I'm going to click deploy. Fingers crossed that this works. The next thing that I'm going to do is open FileMaker Pro 18. Sorry, Claris FileMaker 18 Pro Advanced. I'm going to click on File Open. Going to click on Hosts. And then the URL that I'm going to add into the host address is the devcon 2019.fmi blah, blah, blah. Make it devcon is awesome for my host favorites name. Now I can see a list of all of the FileMaker databases that are inside this. For you, please select the database that is linked, that is the same number on your piece of paper. For me, I'm going to open up 101. The account name is going to be admin, and the password will be back in our tutorial, if you scroll down from where the node-client particle forever words were, there is the link to the password. So the username was admin. The password is this long string. I'm going to paste that into password, and we're going to sign into our database. Oh, great. So at some point in the future after today, you'll be able to download this database and play with it in your own time, and be able to get sync devices and signal device working. But for now, what we're actually going to do is, in FileMaker, we're going to click on File, Manage, and go to Layouts. Then from the Layouts pane, we're going to go under API, and you're going to see Event API. Once you see Event API, you'll be able to hit the Open button. And for those of you that have done this correctly, you should see records updating in your... Oh, I missed one thing. Go back to the original database. Click on Settings. And this is where the last bit of magic happens, where we're going to link our rules engine instance, and all of our hard work is going to pay off. So we're going to type in the name of our rules engine instance. For me, that was FileMaker224.rules.particle.io. And then once I click Settings again, it's going to be linked. If I click back into my events pane, I should hopefully see records updating. The server is missing your database. So we'll take a peek at that in a second. Should be working. Sorry, yeah, so the settings field should, I'll leave this up for a second. Hey, Louis, are you able, can you spin up his, Yeah, I'm spinning them up. Okay, perfect, thanks. Okay. So I am going to cheat a little bit, and we'll debug everyone else's sessions, but I will actually go ahead and open up my host that's working right now. Yeah, it still has the red triangle. We'll have to figure that out in a second. But for now, I have another database that's up and running. And when I log into that one, if I go back into Manage Layouts, Event API, and I click Open, I can actually go ahead and see data that's getting updated in real time, creating new records in FileMaker. So we'll take some time now to stop and poke at everyone's instances to see if we've got data flowing into your accounts. And in this case, I don't have my data flowing anymore. The server in the settings is going to be your rules engine URL. FileMaker225.rulesengine.particle.io. And then when I set that, it should. Oops, oh no, what have I done? Okay. Make sure to precede it with the HTTPS. So I'll leave that up there. So now we'll spend some time seeing if we made sure the data is actually flowing into your. So it sounds like what we've found out is that we're running into the limits on the FileMaker cloud instance that we've deployed. So what you'll actually see is in your node, if when you go into your particle rules engine and you click on the debug messages and you're able to see unable to open file publishing in your logs, that actually means that everything is set up correctly. It's just that we have 60 plus people in a room that have made the FileMaker cloud instance very unhappy. But basically, you've gotten to the end of the road and you've managed to get data flowing from Particle into FileMaker, but we've just run out of connections on the largest instance that we could deploy. Oh, man. So we've managed to actually hit the end of the workshop. If you guys have any questions or if anybody needs any more hands-on time, please let me know. It's going to be the same thing. So we. We are planning on leaving everything up for a minimum of a month, but hoping to leave it up longer. But we have your contact information, and I think we're working very closely with the FileMaker team, so we might actually have a tutorial so that, right? Because the Particle team is able to leave up the rules engine instances, but this is the first time we've ran into maxing out the connections on the FileMaker cloud. Totally understand. There's actually a point where mine stopped working too.